Jen, what's wrong? Paul asked in his calm, soothing voice, very concerned. It's all my fault, I sobbed. It's all my fault that you got pregnant. You aren't supposed to be going through this. I am. I am so sorry. I know that you can never forgive me for this, and I don't blame you for wanting to leave me. I'm just fucked up. Sweetheart, that isn't true. Sure, traditionally the girl has the babies, but we're doing something new. Maybe even starting a trend. And I wasn't upset with you to begin with. If I was, I would have had the abortion. So if you were mad at her, you would have had the abortion just to spite her? Wow, how charming. But I'm happy about getting to have a baby. Okay, that was really clunky. This could be a once-in-a-lifetime chance. Why not at least try to enjoy it? Coming from the man who wanted to commit suicide a few paragraphs ago, I'm not going to leave you. I don't want to leave you. I love you. And you're not at all fucked up. You're the most that I could ever have asked for. And you are mine. He smiled at me. It's not your fault or anybody's. It was meant to be. Everything happens for a purpose. He leaned over and gave me a good long kiss. You're so sweet. You're the most I could ever have asked for too. I looked up into his eyes and smiled weakly at him. Shall we go back in then? There's a bit of a chill out here. Paul helped me to my feet and put his arm around my shoulders. Wait, not yet. I put my hands on his stomach and I could feel the baby kicking. I smiled at him. Okay, now we can go. Stop capitalizing random words! He led me inside where John, Sin, and Jules still were. What just happened? John asked as soon as he saw my face. Nothing important. Ah! Paul yelled out as he clutched his stomach. Paul, other room now. Okay, I tried to support his weight with my body, but he had become so heavy that he knocked me to the floor. John came over and helped him get off of me. I can't carry him anymore. He's just too heavy for me, I exclaimed as John helped him up. John picked Paul up in his arms. Where do you want him? The bed in the bedroom would be fine. John brought Paul to the bedroom and carefully lowered him onto the bed. Okay, John, close the door on your way out, okay? I heard the door creak close but not click. Oh well. Paul, lay down on your back. Well, he was already on his back, so I don't know why I just said that. Well, then that stupid sentence was completely pointless then. Now spread your legs apart. He did, and I put 2 or 3 pillows between them. Now press your legs together as tightly as you can and keep them that way. He did, and I rolled him onto his left side. Just stay relaxed. That's what's important. I feel so stupid doing this. Just bear with me here, okay? You want to feel better, don't you? Yeah. Well, there you go. I laid down next to him and kissed him passionately. I started at his sweet lips, down his neck, and down to his vast chest. While I started doing this, I slyly kicked the pillows away, which made putting them there completely pointless, mind you. I quickly tore away his shirt when I reached his collarbone. I kept going down around his belly and finally undid his pants. He was reaching around and stripping me at the same time. I had got up and pushed him onto his back gently and started straddling his chest while reclining back against his stomach. Pretty comfy for my actually, don't you mean me? He stuck his tongue deeply inside of me and licked and licked and licked. I reached back behind me and started to stroke him gently, just barely touching him, but I could feel that he was getting excited. I rolled over onto my stomach while still on top of him, spread his knees apart, then leaned down forward and started to massage his balls. Oh! Paul moaned. Just then I heard a giggle coming from the doorway. The door was open just a crack, but through it I could see John crouched down on the floor watching us, and he had his hand over his mouth trying to hold back his laughter. I picked up the blanket and wrapped it around my body and walked over to the door and slammed it shut. I will admit that part was somewhat funny. Then I walked over to Paul, who had obviously noticed John there, and his face was a deep shade of maroon. Now, where were we? I asked in my sexy voice. Oh, I'm not in the mood anymore. I'm sorry. I can't blame you. I don't think I'd be in the mood either if I found out someone was watching me. Not that okay, never mind. Sigh, it's not your fault. Do not have the word sign frickin' parentheses, you frickin' idiot! Sound effects do not belong in fanfics unless they're supposed to be scripted, and this is not scripted. It's not your fault. Get dressed. Again, the stupid sigh is in the parentheses. Idiot. I threw my clothes back on quickly, as did he, and we went back out to the other room, feeling rather awkward. I gave John an evil glare as I passed by him. So wait a minute, they were going to have sex while they still had company over? Seriously? Rude much? Well, I suppose that we should get going, Sin said. It's starting to get late. Oh, all right. Well, it was nice of you to come over and visit. No trouble at all. And if you need anything, just give us a ring. Again, they capitalized the word everything because this person has a tendency of doing that. Okay, we will. And then they left. About a week later, Paul's belly had grown even more, and we had another visitor. Ding dong, the doorbell chimed. I went over to the door while Paul laid on the couch in discomfort. I opened it, and Ringo was there. I just wanted to apologize for how I acted that one day. You know, when you told me about Paul. Oh, it's all right. We forgive you. Paul does especially, don't you, Paul? I said over my shoulder. I do what? Paul asked. You forgive Ringo for how he was that one day, right? Of course I do. Can I, come in? Yeah, sure. I let him inside, and when he saw Paul, his eyes bugged a little, but I could tell he was trying to be polite by trying to hide it. How have you been, old buddy? He asked uncomfortably, putting an arm around Paul's shoulders. Uncomfortable, ugly, in pain, but other than that, just lovely. Oh, you're not ugly. You're Paul McCartney, for God's sake. You'll never be ugly. You're the cute Beatle for a reason. Paul smiled a little at that. You want to be at the birth? What? Ringo asked, even though you could tell he'd understood what he just said, but he'd wanted a confirmation though. Why do you have apostrophe D for every time you say he'd? You don't need that there. Let's read it without the stupid apostrophe D's. Ringo said, even though you could tell he understood what he had just said, he wanted a confirmation though. You probably needed it once in there, but the other two you didn't need it for. When I have the baby, you know, I don't want to have to. You don't have to. I'm not forcing you to either. I just thought I might ask. Well, I don't want to hurt your feelings by saying no, but wouldn't it be kind of gross? I mean, to cut you open and everything. Paul looked disappointed, but I'll do it anyway for you, because you're one of me best friends. Paul's face lit up. But you don't have to if you don't want to do it. Okay, you can tell that Paul's kind of forcing him to, because it's like, oh, you don't have to do it, but then when he implies he's not going to, he looks all upset, and then it's like, oh, but I'll do it anyway. Yeah, manipulation. Isn't it fun? I mean, I can totally understand where you're coming from here on this, not wanting to and all, since it probably would be pretty nasty, so if you don't want to, I'd understand. Now, if it was you having the baby, and you asked me, I know, I'd be like, ha, screw you, I'm not watching that. Well, if you promise me you're not hurt, I'm not. Well, I don't really want to, I'm sorry. And that's okay, I don't really care. Jen, could you call the other two and ask them? Sigh, fine. Why? What's the freaking, why can't you just have it say, I sighed, instead of having the stupid word be in parentheses? So I went to go make the phone calls. Hello, is this John? Yeah, what do you want? Paul just wanted to know if you wanted to be there when you had the baby. When you had the baby? Don't you mean when we're gonna have the baby? Sure, I'm sure he'll be glad to hear it. Anything else, love? No, that's all. Bye, bye. Hello, George. This is George Harrison speaking. This is Jennifer, Paul's girlfriend. The tone in George's voice softened. How is Paul? I heard about his condition. Is he all right? Yes, he's fine. He wanted to know if you wanted to be there at the birth. I guess this is a once-in-a-lifetime chance, so all right. All right, John will be there too, though thought I'd point that out to you. What about rings? Nah, he doesn't want to. He got a little squeamish when we asked him. Oh, is that all? Yep. Okay, bye. So I went into the other room where Paul and Ringo still were. Polly, John, and George both said they'll be there. That's great, Paul exclaimed happily. I could tell by looking at Ringo that he felt a little guilty about not going. Can I change my mind and decide to go? Of course. So you'll be there then? Paul asked eagerly. Yeah, I think I will. Yay, Paul yelled out. I smiled to finally see Paul happy about something again. A few days later, in the middle of the night, I woke up to find Paul on a chair playing his guitar in the middle of the night with a pained look on his face. It looked strange, and then all of a sudden he just collapsed into a little ball on the floor with his guitar. I got the guitar out from under him since that had to be uncomfortable. I sat him up against the bed and called the doctor. He said to get him to the emergency room immediately and that he'd meet me there. I made a few quick phone calls to the other three, and as I was, Paul came to. Now he was in more pain than ever, and he kept yelling out inaudible phrases. I did my best to drag him out to the car, but I couldn't do it. So I called an ambulance. The doctor apparently had already expected this, and we drove off in it. About 10 minutes later, Paul got into the wheelchair as soon as we arrived at the hospital, and the other three were already there. Use the word 3, not the number 3, please and thank you. I had put on one of those weird surgeon outfits so I can go in, as did the others. Paul got brought into the operating room quickly. They took off all of his clothes, and then they took this blanket that had a hole in the center of it cut out and put it over him. The hole was where his stomach went. One doctor took a needle and put it into Paul's back, I guess to numb him. I assume that it was the epidural. Another doctor rubbed this red stuff onto Paul's stomach, and I know for a fact it was some type of antiseptic. Then, after a few minutes, the main doctor pressed on various points on Paul's stomach, asking if Paul could feel it, and Paul kept on saying no, and then they were done with that. Me and the 3 boys, again, use the word 3, not the number 3, and it should not say me and the 3 boys. It should say the 3 boys and I, because if you took out and the 3 boys, this is what it would say. Me had chairs to sit on. The 3 boys and I had chairs to sit on since it would be a long operation and we didn't have to stand up and watch it. I held Paul's hand as they put the oxygen mask on him. The main doctor took a scalpel and made the initial cut, rather high up on Paul's stomach if you ask me. There were all kinds of tools holding Paul open, and it looked like it had to hurt. They kept cutting deeper, one layer at a time, and by the time they had reached where the baby was at, George had to excuse himself because he was feeling ill. Get rid of the second "had" in that sentence because you don't need it. They removed the baby, and there was obviously some damage done to him. You could see it. Of course there was damage done. They had to cut him open to take the baby out, you freaking idiot! He would die for sure if they left him the way he was. No shit! No, we're just gonna place a little band-aid over the big open wound that we just made you, and we're gonna make you go home and bleed to death. Thank you, Captain Obvious! Idiot! Idiot! Idiot. Paul, you just delivered a perfectly healthy baby girl, the doctor said as he held her into Paul's view. She's so sweet, Paul said incredibly weakly. A nurse took her and brought her into the nursery to be cleaned up and run some tests on her. Then the doctor added a few more tools to open him even wider, and he instructed me and the boys to step outside the operating room door. There has been quite a bit of damage done to Paul's body. He has a ruptured spleen, lacerations to the liver and large intestine, a puncture hole in his stomach, and some broken ribs. Paul may very well die from this. I thought that I should tell you this now. Now, you can stay for the rest of the surgery or you can leave, since it's going to be very long until it's done. If you want to stay, great, and if you want to leave, go ahead. We can use the extra room. So who's staying and who's going? We all looked at each other. Ringo and George had decided that they wanted to leave, so it would only be me and John that stayed with Paul. We were quickly ushered back into the operating room. Paul, would you like to stay awake during the rest of the operation or be put out? I want to stay awake. I don't believe in those anesthetic things. So for hours we sat there with Paul, hoping and praying for the best while the doctors worked on him. I glanced at my watch. They had spent the last 7 hours on him so far just to repair his liver. How long was he going to be in there? What do you mean in there? If you're in the room with him, you should say in here, seeing you're with him. He ended being in surgery for about 72 hours. or more easily known as 3 days. But just say he was in there for 3 days! And again, never mind. He got put on IVs and heart and breathing monitors and all kinds of other nasty stuff. I didn't leave his side though, except for when the doctors took short breaks, and even then I didn't leave. I only left about maybe 4 to use the restroom the whole time, and had food brought to me since I was so committed to staying at Paul's side the whole time. When they finally finished the surgery, yes, you say it like it was such a chore, like it was an annoyance. Oh, they finally got the surgery done. I never. Several epidurals later, too, I might add. You didn't need to add that. He still had to have a cast put on for the broken ribs, which took quite a while more. Once finished, it was nighttime and Paul was brought into his room and I followed him. No shit! Oh, Polly baby, how do you feel? I asked him with much concern. Sigh. Stop having sigh in parentheses! Stop doing that! Stop doing that! Stop doing that! Stop! I am sorry. I am just getting a little frustrated with this fanfic because it is so fucking stupid! God, I'm tired. It hurts too. Well, I figured that. I'm tired too, but it's worth it. You're here, I'm here with you, so it's very much worth it to me. Just then a nurse came in with our daughter. Here's your lovely baby girl, Mr. McCartney. The nurse handed the baby over to Paul, who cradled her very sweetly in his arms. Oh, she's the most beautiful baby I've ever seen, he said. Have you two decided on a name for her yet? The nurse asked. Jen? Paul asked. Yes. Any suggestions? Well, being you're the one that carried her to term and everything, you think up a name that you think is perfect and you let me know. Okay. I've always envisioned having a daughter named Linda. I don't know why, but I can't think of a middle name for her though. Does Linda Louise sound good to you? Yes, it does. Put Linda Louise on the birth certificate. And that is what she did. 4 weeks later, Mr. McCartney, you still need to rest and no strenuous activities, but you can go home. Wait about 2 more weeks, then if you're up to going back to work, go for it, the doctor said. And so the 3 of us went home, and with many reporters surrounding us on the way out, but their stories for the news were all wrong. They thought that I'd had the baby. Little did they know what would come next for them in the news when we clarified the real story. When we got home, it feels great to be back, Paul exclaimed as we reached the front door. I opened it and the whole living room was decorated in pastel decorations and balloons, and all of our family and friends were there, waiting to welcome us and the baby home. The nursery was all set up and decorated too, something that we had never gotten around to doing. Then I noticed 2 extremely special guests, my mother and father. They had flown all the way from California over to England just to see us. Oh, Jennifer, it's so good to finally see you again, my mother said as she and I hugged. Where's the sweet little baby? She must be in the nursery with Paul already. I assume the baby is being bottle fed. Actually, no, she's not. I'm on hormone therapy now so I can produce milk. And if Paul wants to feed her, then I use the breast pump and she'll get bottle fed by him. But if he doesn't want to, then I feed her. Oh, my mom said, sounding slightly confused. So when did you get married? All that ran through my mind at the moment was, oh shit. What? All that ran through my mind at the moment was, oh shit. I think you're missing a word in there. I think it should say, all that ran through my mind at, oh, never mind. I'm sorry, that was my own bad. Sorry. It still should have been worded a little better though. I didn't even realize that with being so busy keeping Paul comfortable that I forgot all about getting married. Well, we're not exactly married yet, but as soon as Paul recovers, we will be. I walked quickly away from Mom and into the nursery, where sure enough I found Paul cuddling our little Linda while sitting in the rocking chair near the window, the sun gently shining its rays down upon them. Shh, he said as he entered the room. Oh, is she asleep? I whispered. He nodded yes. He gently placed her down in her bassinet, but as he did, she woke up and started crying. He just looked over at me with a look that said it all. What am I supposed to do? Have you tried singing to her? I haven't sung for ages. Well, try then. He got up and got his guitar from the other room. He came in and he strummed what sounded like a rough sketch of a song. La 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 la, lovely Linda, with the lovely flowers in her hair. I know that was off the top of my head, so shut up. He kept on singing those lines over and over again. She wouldn't stop crying. Sigh. Sigh. We're almost done. We are almost done. This isn't working, Jen, he said sadly. Try another song, I suggested. Okay, my baby, she comes out at night, taking me by surprise. Yeah, she's my baby. Something stupid like that. Made it up on the top of my head, so bear with me. He started to sing. Then he hummed a verse with the same tune and then went to a new part of the song. She's a baby in the morning time when the sleep in her eyes is her eyes or something like that. And he just kept on singing and she fell asleep. And I am very sorry about that, folks. I am incredibly sorry about that. Wow, that worked fairly well, I said quietly. Now that our baby is asleep, I'm wondering how quiet you can do it. Do what? I asked, bewildered. It sunk in what he meant when he got that mischievous, dirty look on his face and started to quietly but quickly tiptoe towards me. Sex, 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 sex is what the fanfic is. It's about sex, 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 sex with your kid. Sex, 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 having sex with your kid in the room. Oh, it's recommended. So then you can traumatize them for life when they wake up in the middle of the night to see mommy and daddy playing pogo stick on each other. Sex and sex. Yes, let's continue. Then whispered in my ear so sexily it made my spine nearly give in with a shiver. I've missed having you for so long, baby. I've not been able to touch you like you want me to for nearly 6 months. Now that I'm healthy again, I intend to give you the ride of your life, girl. He sighed heavily as he started stroking his hand on my thigh and then running his index finger up the side of my body, going all over my curves, up to my neck. I giggled with the cheek of Paul. So is one of his cheeks supposed to be laughing? Or is it one of his cheeks down there that's supposed to be laughing? The visual I am getting. And how he was making me feel. Then suddenly I remembered the baby. And what about Linda? I asked. I don't think she'd mind a bigger family if anything happened again, he said matter-of-factly. No, I mean, shagging in front of her. We don't want to wake her. I said, looking into his eyes. Well, you'll have to control your sex cries. He grinned naughtily at me. Oh, Paul, I sighed, looking away in disgust. I knew I was making these excuses up for other reasons. Can't we just talk? We need to think of the future, what people are going to say, the press, the fans, our friends and family. We'll tell them the truth. It was a natural phenomenon. A pregnant man. What about us? I said, sitting down in a huff. Where's our phenomenon? Boo boo ba doo boo. Sorry. I said, kind of depressed and annoyed at the thought of marriage and us hadn't even crossed his mind. Oh, men, they're so stupid. They do not have marriage on their minds 24/7 like us women do. Most women who like to dream of their weddings when they're 3 years old. And just to let you know, I'm not one of those women. I mean, I do want to get married someday, but it's not my big priority, and it's not going to be a deal where it's my day. It's going to be our day, as in me and my lover. It's not going to be about me. It's going to be about both of us, and that's the way it should be. Not all this me gag. And if I offended people with that, I'm sorry, but I'm just stating my opinion. I looked at him in the corner of my eye. I didn't want him to think that I was looking at him to see his reaction. I pretended I wasn't looking at all. Anyway, if I looked at his beautiful face, I might have started crying. After all this, with him having our baby and me supporting him through every breath, which could have been his last, I think all the emotion got to me right then. But to my surprise, he was smiling a sweet, knowing kind of smile. I'm sorry, I should have done this sooner. It just never seemed the right time. He was already on one knee. He held his hand to mine and rubbed his thumb gently on it, looking at the floor, with a bit of what seemed like embarrassment, then coughed a little like he was about to prepare a speech. And he looked up at me with tears in his eyes as he said, Jen, I love you. You know I love you. I need you. Will you marry me? I sat memorized at him for a moment, like time had stopped. He started to sweat a little, get shifty-eyed, looked very worried like he had just made a horrible mistake. Then he saw me not moving an inch. I was in shock. Then he did what sounded like such a desperate little thing, like he had no idea what to do next. He said in a squeaky, pathetic, begging way, please? His gorgeous hazel eyes soulfully looked into mine, turning his head a little like a puppy asking for scraps. That's when I lost it. I was laughing my head off. Please, I imitated. Aw, God, Paul, you're so adorable, you know that. No wonder they call you the cute one. Of course I'll marry you, sweetie. I love you. He let out a huge sigh of relief like he hadn't breathed for 3 minutes. Use the word 3 and not the number 3, you freaking bozo! Then we were in each other's arms, hugging each other for all with delight. Of course, you do realize you'll be the husband technically, don't you? I looked up at him from having my head snuggled in his big, strong chest. What? I said, completely confused. I'm the mother. I gave birth. So from now on, you'll be Mr. McCartney, okay? He looked at me with a total calm and plain face, like I was supposed to just accept this. But, Paul, I'm not sure. He giggled, swirling me around the room with his arms. Got you there, love. You actually believed me? Ha ha ha. Oh, Paul, I smiled. Before long, we were rolling our tongues around each other's mouths. Long, slow kissing only stopped to take gasps of passionate breaths, every now and then bursts of ohs when our hands, which were all over each other, would reach pinnacle areas. He suddenly slowed down and stopped. Oh, Paul, I gasped as I shifted my body up close to him, chest to chest. His arms were around me. He let out a deep, low rolled his eyes looking at the ceiling with overwrought feelings of pleasure. Then he grinned and looked down at me. He started panting like a dog with his tongue out while lifting me up and taking me to the bed, and giggling as he laid me down underneath his glaring, wanting eyes. I looked over to Linda's bassinet, a bit worried we might wake her. She'll be okay, love. If she wakes up, we'll explain we're trying for her sister or brother. He smiled playfully. Paul, I giggled, as he began unbuttoning my shirt buttons. He had just begun stroking his hands slowly down around my breast, moving his head down to kiss them when I heard a knock on the door. I looked up suddenly to see Ringo standing in the doorway looking very red and embarrassed. I just came to see where you had gotten to. Sorry, he muttered, looking at his feet. Again, these two people, they have no problems with having sex while they have company over. Wow. Rich, it's all right. You had no idea. Just leave and shut the door quietly behind you, I said, then quickly looking back down at Paul. Shall we continue where we were at? Why, of course, love, he exclaimed as he rolled me over onto the bed, and we had the greatest night of our lives. The end. Prologue. Jennifer and Paul were married on March 12th that year, when Linda turned 10. They told her the story of how she was born. The reason of how or why that it happened the way it did, though, will forever remain a mystery. The end. Wow, what an adorable story. Adorably bad! Not even adorable. Why do I even use the word adorable? There was nothing adorable about this at all. This was a monstrosity. This was so freaking stupid. And I have read fanfics where they are about real people. I have read fanfics about Michael Jackson's children wanting to fuck him. I have read fanfics about two political figures wanting to fuck each other. I have read fanfics about a Democrat and a Republican in an alternate dimension where they are gay lovers when they were teenagers. I have read fanfics that have made people's minds spin, but never have I read a fanfic as bad and awful as this one until today. This fanfic is a monstrosity. It is one of the worst fanfics I have ever read. It is wrong. And let me tell you why it's wrong. First of all, it is about a real person. Several real people to be technical, but still about one real person, and that real person being Paul McCartney. Paul McCartney never got pregnant. And he never dated someone named Jennifer. And they never had a daughter together. That proves that this author here is supposed to be Jennifer in the story. So not only did she write a fanfic about a real person, she wrote a stupid fantasy fuck fanfic about her and Paul McCartney having a child together and having sex all the time. And what's worse? You want to know what's worse? She made him pregnant. This is an M-preg fanfic. It's an M-preg fanfic, it's an original character fanfic, and it's a real person fanfic, all packaged into one stupid shit bomb. This is an abomination of all fanfics. This is like taking the 3 worst things about fanfics and merging them together into one. Oh my fucking God. Beetle babe. What the fuck is your problem? What the fuck is your problem? How did you think this was going to be appealing to people? How? It's your freaking fantasy. That's what it is. And what is with your fantasy? Why would you want to fantasize Paul McCartney being pregnant? Why? 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 I don't understand. I just don't. What is so appealing about a man being pregnant? In the way you try to explain it made no freaking sense. It made no sense. Absolutely, positively no sense whatsoever. I know I already went through this when I first discovered the fact that he was pregnant in this, but I will go through it again. A woman's egg does not leave the uterus unless she's on her period. You see, the period, the PMS cycle, the premenstrual system, whatever it's called, that's the body's way of getting rid of the egg if it has not been fertilized. If the egg has been fertilized before the PMSing can start, then the PMS will not start because the egg is fertilized. And that's how the pregnancy starts. So the only way this egg could have left her uterus is if she had her period while she was fucking Paul McCartney. Secondly, even if the egg did manage to get inside of his penis, it would have been squirted out immediately when he ejaculated. You know, I know that in the story, like I said before, in the story it said, oh, well, he pulled out before he ejaculated. He still would have ejaculated. The whole purpose of him pulling out was so that he wouldn't ejaculate inside of her. But you want to know something? If they didn't want to risk having babies in the first place, why didn't he wear protection? Come on, they had to have condoms back then. They should have. I believe they had them back then, and if they didn't, then forgive me for being wrong, but I'm just trying to point something out. And even if the egg managed to get inside of his penis and travel up to his abdominal area and attach itself to one of his organs, there is no way it would be able to develop into a baby. Unless Paul's body adapted to it and somehow made a little miniature uterus for it to be in and made a little umbilical cord, there's no way the baby would have developed into a baby. It would have suffocated. It would have died. It wouldn't have developed at all. It just wouldn't have. My God. Beetle babe, go back to school and retake biology class. my overall opinion of this story? Well, I think it's safe to assume that I hated it with a freaking passion. It was painful to read. It was painful, the visuals that I got from it. The grammar mistakes were awful. The spelling was awful. The stupid capitalized words that kept on popping up. The stupid words that were in parentheses 24/7. The annoyingness of the original character. It was just so freaking bad. And how she had the characters in this story were just awful. They were sex maniacs. He's in pain. And suddenly, he's turned on, so she starts to fuck him. And then the fact that they kept on having sex when they had company over. What? Who the hell does that? You do not do that. You do that in private. You do not do it when you're in the middle of throwing a party to celebrate the birth of your child. This person is really making me want to scream right now. I just don't understand how their brain works, how they could think that writing something like this would be entertaining, because the only person it's entertaining to is them. The only person this is entertaining to is them. It didn't entertain me, and I'm sure it didn't entertain you. It better not have entertained you. And if it did entertain you, then maybe you should get your brains checked out. I'm sorry for saying so, but I'm going to say it anyway. I don't get how this fanfic could have been enjoyable to anyone. Anyone! So, I think we should end this little thing with a song.
Hey you, what the fuck was that? I can't believe that I just read this crap. This fanfic really made me want to scream, and I know that it made some people's ears bleed. Hey you, go back to school, because it's clear that you flunked biology class. A man cannot get pregnant. It's only a woman who can harbor babies. The egg does not leave the uterus unless the woman is on her period, you dumb moron. There is no way it would be able to travel into the dick and implant itself in the abdominal cavity. That doesn't make sense, doesn't make sense. Hey you, with your Mary Sue, it was clear that she was supposed to be you. Don't do that, it is really annoying, and technically it's against the rules of fanfiction. And as for this fanfic having a real person, that is completely wrong, you moron. And it was really creepy because your character fucks the real person who's in this fanfic. Oh, you have issues, you have issues. Hey you made me mad because this fic was just so very bad. And this fanfic, it makes me want to cry and question your reason and ask you why. Oh, why, oh, why, oh, why, oh, why, oh, why, oh, why. Oh, my fucking God. Fucking God, this sucks.
Well, I'm the FanFic Critic. I read it, you listen, and I need to go bleach my brain.
This sucks.